All right. Hello, everybody. It's 11:01 Pacific time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Remy Verstraete, and I'm a product marketer here at Emsi. And here with me, I also have Matthew Hyndman, who is a product manager, and he helps lead development and design for some of our software tools, including Alumni Insight, which we'll be looking at today. So thank you again for making time to join us for today's webinar, Using Alumni Data to Expand Students' Horizons and Strengthen Employer Relationships. We're excited to host this event with our special guest, Dr. Jenna Crabb, who serves as the Director of Career Services at the University of New Mexico, and she's also the President of the New Mexico Consortium for Career Educators and Employers. And she's driving the slide deck today, so Jenna, if you can go ahead and take us to our next slide. Thank you. And here's today's agenda. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to give a brief introduction to Emsi for those of you who might not be familiar with who we are and what we do. And then I'll hand things over to Jenna so that she can show you how Alumni Insight works and share some of the ways that alumni data is having a real impact at UNM. And she'll also share some ideas they have for using it in the future. And then we will wrap up with some Q&A. So brief housekeeping note, all webinar attendees are muted, but as you watch the presentation today, feel free to submit questions using that questions box over on the right-hand side on that side panel. And feel free to do that at any time. And then Matthew, our product manager, and Jenna will work through those questions at the end of the webinar. Also note that the webinar is being recorded, and we will send a link of the recording to everyone who registered. So if you haven't seen that email by probably noon tomorrow, you might want to check your spam folder because we plan to send it out by then. So here we are, our Emsi data overview. Emsi is a labor market analytics company, and we got our start about 18 years ago measuring the economic impact of community colleges. So that's where our roots are. And then through that work, we developed expertise collecting, analyzing the underlying data for those studies. And that's what we refer to as traditional labor market data. And that's what you would think of as information that comes from the BLS, from the Census Bureau, and we pull from about 40 other government sources, national and state. And we still do that work today, but from there we grew to incorporate job posting analytics. And that's because we realized that a lot of colleges and universities were looking for timely information to help guide decision-making around what programs to offer and then what skills needed to be taught in those programs. So to help answer those questions, we aggregate millions of postings from companies' career pages and online job boards to get information like top companies that are hiring in your region, in-demand jobs, in-demand skills, and things like that. And then that last bullet point there, at the beginning of 2017, we introduced alumni professional profile data. And this came from recognizing that while it's important and helpful to understand economic trends and the needs of employers, a lot of colleges and universities were still missing a critical piece of information. They wanted to know, where do our students go after they graduate? And that can be, where do they go geographically? Where do they go professionally, as in what kinds of jobs are they getting? So to help address that need, we're basically doing the same kind of thing with online workforce profiles and resumes that we were doing already with job postings, where we're aggregating information from the open web. So sources would include any major social networking or professional networking site that you might think of. And that includes industry-specific sites like GitHub for software developers or Behance for designers, sites like that. And again, we're cleaning it, organizing it, and then delivering it in software that helps colleges and universities answer questions about their alumni and hopefully use that information to drive student success. So I'll stop there because Jenna is actually going to show you that tool right now. So Jenna, I'll hand things over to you.
Great. Well, thank Thank you, and good morning and good afternoon to everybody. I appreciate this opportunity to share what the University of New Mexico has been doing utilizing this great tool from Emsi. So when we were first introduced with this data, I was I'll be honest, a little hesitant because I was thinking, how am I going to use this, and how am I going to show to the best of my ability where our alumni are going, and understanding where the data was collected from. And so I really got into it and started playing with it and realized how great it was, to be honest. And so what I would like to show you today is some examples of how we are utilizing this data from an institutional perspective, from an employer perspective, and from a state perspective. And then also kind of some new directions that we're looking at utilizing this data. And so I've been playing with this data for about 4 to 5 months. And one of the first things that I noticed is, many of us are not statisticians or, that ingrained into data, although we are living in such a data and metric heavy society right now. So I was a little intimidated, but then once I got into it, the ease really came through and I started loving this tool. So the first thing that, I do obviously is selecting my school. So I typed in the University of New Mexico, as you can see right here. And then there's many filters that you can actually play with. And I'm going to show you a few of the common ones that we used and how we used them. So from an institutional perspective, one of the first things I did was just run a general report. And you're going to see how easy this is. It actually, I used the one filter of University of New Mexico, and it actually came up with 73,309 alumni profiles. Now, one thing that I did do, and I want to point this out, is down here you'll notice at the very bottom, I actually have filtered to only show profiles from the last 5 years. And we did that actually very strategically because we felt that was a little bit more relevant. This data is actually fun to play with because you can actually go all the way back to 2000. And these are profiles that have been updated since that date and that year. So I did a 5-year period just because I felt that was a little bit more relevant and gave me probably a little bit more updated information. So once you pull this information, it gives you a number of, a visual tool of where my alumni are going from UNM. And just to go through briefly, and you'll see that this is common for all the reports, it gives me the top cities, exploring different profiles. Actually, this is a list of direct people and where they're working, so the direct alumni profiles, the top states that my alumni are going in, the top companies, as you'll see here, our top programs, top occupations, which are general occupations, and then we get down to actual job titles, the top schools that are listed for our alumni, and then I personally love this, is the top skills and qualifications that we're seeing with our alumni. And so what I've created, and I'll show you just how we did this, is then I created a profile, if you will, an infographic of where are UNM alumni going. And this was one that you can see it's actually been updated since then. But when I first ran this report, we had 46,222, and that tells you a big difference. And I purposely put this one up because I ran this back before our May graduates. And so you can see kind of when you're using this data, when alumni profiles spike. And the reason why I wanted to point this out to you guys was I saw how relevant this data was and how updated to the minute it is in terms of our May graduates. That's a big jump and spike of how many changes there were in profiles. But I created this infographic to really show where in general are our UNM alumni going. And I picked our top city states, our top companies, the top job titles, our top programs of study, and then the top skills. And our upper administration loved this. They really thought this was a good picture. As many of us know, we get lots of questions in general about where are, your university's alumni going. And this gave a general overall picture, and you can present it in a number of ways. I did a very simple infographic, just to get it started in terms of where we're going. So that gives you a good overall view of how I'm using that as an overall profile pick. After that, I started playing a little bit more with it, and I'm going to kind of show you about, how did I use this, digging a little deeper. And what I did was I actually, if you go in and you have your general report, you can start selecting programs. And so this is where I started with UNM, and then I started going, okay, I want to go down to a college level. And so again, I ran a general report on engineering, and you can click a number of reports here. So you can get very specific, which you'll see how I actually got specific. But I ran first just a general engineering report, and again, started digging a little bit at it. And, and again, it pulls up the same data, your top cities, your top companies, some of your profiles where you can actually see exactly where your alumni are going. And it's very easy to export this data into either an Excel or PDF. And I'll give you my little hint on this. Excel it, download it to Excel, because then you can manipulate and play a little bit with it. As a PDF, it's a little bit more difficult, and it also does not give you the expanded profiles that you will see here when you click on these buttons. So it actually gives you the entire database of information that you can actually save and then play around with, which is what I did. And so when I ran it for the schools, I actually then developed a couple of things. One was I developed an infographic for each of our schools. And I did a similar thing where I said, so you have an engineering degree. Where do UNM alumni go with an engineering degree? And again, I helped highlight each of these areas, and I actually just here for this one, I actually used the top 10 job titles, the top 10 occupations, and then the top skills and qualifications. When I asked students about this, I really was trying to get at the heart of what they wanted to know if they were thinking about an engineering degree. Because oftentimes they'll start with that. I want to be an engineer. Well, what kind? I'm not sure yet. And so this helps them start really looking at, well, what are the type of job titles? What are the occupations? And these were the top things that my students really wanted to know is where are they going and what are they doing in order of, kind of exploration purposes, if you will. From there, the students were pretty impressed, but then they were like, okay, then I really want to know in terms of majors. And so again, we looked at this, but I got way more specific. So I started pulling specific degrees. And I said, okay, I want to pull mechanical engineering, for example. And again, it would load my preferences here. There was that, 1,785. I ran my report in Excel. It pulled up my Excel spreadsheet. And then that way I could really pinpoint where are my alumni going with that particular degree. And what was interesting about this was I could actually run a report for my administrators within each of my majors. So the chairs, I could run it for any administration, any faculty members, as well as the students, and send them more of a comprehensive report, which you'll see here. And so, for example, this is nuclear engineering. And so what I did was created a report where it actually gives them graphics that I created, but the actual percentage of where are our alumni going within the last 5 years in terms of their levels of education. And I included all levels of education from UNM. So it could be bachelor's, master's, or PhD. And it broke it down. You can actually go further into this and say, I only want to look at undergrad degrees, or I only want to look at graduate degrees and see where they're going. And that gets even further down where you're just streamlining that information. This, I went through and gave them a full report in terms of their top cities, in terms of their top companies, which I will be honest with you, the top companies was something they loved. The students loved it. The faculty really loved it. Our foundation group within each of our colleges were very excited to see this because they could actually look to see where our alumni are. Our job titles was very interesting to our students. This was the one that the students wanted to see. What do they, what positions are they actually getting, and what does it mean? And it really helps with students understanding that position titles may be very different than, an engineering degree, and I'm an engineer. And so students can start deciphering what job titles mean. The top schools, and again, the top skills and qualifications. This was extremely informational for our administration to evaluate what they are teaching, as well as information for the students. What do they need? What are the top skills? What do I need to put on my resume, or what do I need to talk about in my interviews in order to get these jobs? And this is always a fun area for me because we always focus on skill building in terms of students and what they need to do to be more prepared and more competitive in, their job market. So those were kind of the ways that I used it in terms of kind of narrowing down a little bit. Another report that I want to show you is actually pulling up the degree again and utilizing it solely for the school in terms of a major. And so we created what we're calling kind of our major to career pages that we create. And this is an example of an economics degree page that we created. And again, you'll notice here that I definitely own that the data is from UNM alumni social media profiles, and that, I tell them exactly how many profiles were in this so that they have a good understanding of where this data is coming from. Here are the general job titles, and then I did on this page, we did top companies and top skills and qualifications directly from this data. And one little thing I want to share about this is the first time when we created this page, I sent it to the economics chair. And within a few minutes, I got a reply back from the chair saying, "This is great information. Can we put this on our website right now?" He was very excited about the information. He thought it was great to give students a good general idea about what companies are hiring, what the position titles are in terms of getting an economics degree, and kind of the depth and the breadth of them, of all the different areas you can go into. And then he really liked these top skills and qualifications, because he says oftentimes an economics degree, people aren't thinking that they're getting skills in management, skills in leadership, research. I mean, here's economics down here. So all these different areas that really started highlighting to his students about the validity of the economics degree, and giving them good, knowledge around their area and their chosen field. And so I was really excited about that, to get that feedback from a chair, that this is something they really would like to see, and it's helpful. And for them to actually want to put it on their website, I thought was a big deal for us. We were excited about that. So those are kind of the ways that I used it from an institutional perspective, in terms of, going from a broad UNM report that was so easy to run. I mean, just clicks within minutes. I mean, within seconds, actually, you have a report that you can, immediately save to your desktop, save in a file, and then manipulate it and play around with it. To a college report that you're sending to deans, to chairs, so that they can use it in various ways to help educate their students, as well as my office utilizing it to help inform students of their career choices and where they're wanting to go, all the way down to a major report where we're focusing, and we pulled every major at UNM, including all of our grad degrees, to help students make more informed decisions and part of that career development process in terms of exploration. And it has been great. Our students have loved it. I mean, we print it out for them. They access it online. We send it to them, and they love it. It's a great way to really emphasize and help, the process of figuring out where do they want to go and how do they want to do it, and then focusing from there on employers. And that's kind of the next phase that I started looking at. And what's great about this, and I'm going to kind of start over here just to show you, again, starting from our perspective of University of New Mexico. And you can see here again, I could go by regions. I could actually do job titles where I specifically look at job titles, occupations. I can go by industries. And then here's where I focused on select a company. So the one I want to show you today is actually the Forest Service. And so I typed in Forest Service, and it comes up with a number of them. So, you can pick all of them, which is typically what I did, because, again, it depends on how the alumni are defining Forest Service for them. So you can just type them in, and they'll pop up very easy, as you can see. There's USDA, and then you can actually be very generic, Forest Service. And we'll add that one in. And then when you hit run, it's going to pull up all of them. Again, there's 132 profiles of the Forest Service that have been listed by UNM. When I showed this, actually, I did a presentation for our consortium of career educators and employers. And the USDA Forest Service is an active member with that group and very active with UNM. And I used her as an example, of course, her organization, and she just was bewildered by this. She thought this was the greatest thing. And especially when I showed her how easy it was, and we looked at where some of those alumni are being placed, what cities. You can see a lot are in New Mexico. We have a very active Forest Service here. You can see some of the examples of the profiles, and again, we can jump to a profile list, which actually pulls them up and gives you all of the specifics. So Human Resource Assistant at USDA Forest Service in Albuquerque. And you can export this list as well into an Excel, and pull that up, and it will give you a ton of information, just to let you know. It kind of surprises you, the amount of information that it will give you from those alumni. And that will lead to actually another product that they have that they can tell you about at a greater depth. But the top states, the top companies, top programs, she loved this information. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute, and a little teaser. Our top occupations, our top job titles, the top schools where they're coming from. Again, she loved that, but it makes sense that there's 132 that list University of New Mexico. And then the top skills and qualifications. And so what we did with this, just similar to the others, is I created an easy infographic that highlights where do UNM alumni go in the USDA Forest Service. And again, I pulled up the data, listed exactly where they're going. You can see the top cities, top titles, their top occupations, top programs of study, and then lastly, the top skills. Now, one of the things that stood out for her, well, there was actually a couple of them, like I hinted at, was the top occupation was an HR specialist. And she was like, this is great because, so many people really stereotype the Forest Service as only being individuals that go into, like, for example, conservation scientists or forestry or, things like that are very stereotypical of the title of the company. Her top programs of studies for us was business administration. Well, that kind of makes sense with the HR specialist. And then you look at the top skills, management, accounting, leadership, customer service. And so she was really excited because they have been revising their marketing strategies and doing some case studies where they actually have either an intern or a full-time staff member that is talking about their job within USDA Forest Service. And they focused on the very typical Forest Service positions. And this was she loved this because she said, we need to include some people that are on our business side of the house and people that are working in not your atypical jobs with the Forest Service or not the ones that are expected. Another neat thing about this was I was sharing this with some students I was talking to, and one of the students in particular immediately went to the HR specialist position again and said, I would have never dreamed that would be one of their top occupations. This is so exciting to me because that's something I would have never thought of, going to the Forest Service and having a business degree. It would not be one of my first places to look. So this really had kind of a twofold of success in terms of the students really realizing what opportunities might exist for some of your organizations that are involved with you. So what I've been doing now, and actually through most of the summer, was I was pulling up all of our very active companies and organizations that work with us here at UNM, and doing a report where we're going to highlight them on our social media, through marketing, but also on our website. And I'm also sending it to them for their own internal use. The day after I did this presentation, and our recruiter from the Forest Service, she actually got in contact with me the next day and asked if she could share all of this with her corporate office, because she just loved the information. And so she kept asking me, can you run it for this? Can you run it just for a bachelor's degree? Can you run it for grad degrees? Can you run it for this region? And so I was really helping her with all of the filters, and she was just shocked because I was instantly sending them to her. And she just thought this was the best information and was very excited to share this with not only her other recruiters in terms of training and development, but also her corporate offices in terms of marketing and outreach. So there's a lot of different ways that I think this data can be used to be extremely successful for each university. So far, the employers that I have shared this with have been very grateful for me sharing this information, but it has helped them in looking at how they are marketing, and it helps us in terms of our outreach efforts as well, because we can really highlight some of our organizations that don't always get highlighted, or don't, kind of have that, like the Forest Service, kind of a stereotypical view of who they hire and only what degrees do they look for, and, little things like that. So that has been really exciting for us to look at those possibilities and where they're at. So in terms of a state perspective, because we've talked about the institutional perspective, we've talked about the employer perspective and kind of where that's looking at. The third thing that we really started focusing on, one of a partner of mine that works with, he's a consultant, an economic consultant, Charles Lehman is his name, and he works for our state. He does a lot of state initiatives around career development and economic development. And he and I were really talking because our state, like many states, has been looking at where are alumni going from our institutions? Is there a brain drain within our state, which has been a big conversation for about the last 5 years here in New Mexico. And so what we did was we actually did an outreach based on the report that I ran for our overall UNM and for other colleges. And so when we were pulling this data, being able to pull a state view of each of our institutions and sharing that, that information in more of a comprehensive report, we sent an official letter to our Council of University Presidents, along with our Secretary of Higher Education for the state of New Mexico, with information that we would be willing to come and speak to them about this data that we're finding. We can help, kind of disseminate some information for them. And we're kind of excited about that. We've had multiple conversations with our Secretary of Higher Ed, along previous topics. And so we're still waiting to hear from them. We're hoping that that will be an initiative that will take off to give them information, even if it's solely a report that they can view for themselves. So those are kind of the main areas that we've been using. We've been pulling the data pretty much all summer and working on these individual reports that I have shared with you today. Again, everything from an overall UNM report down to a college report, and then further down to a major report. It takes a lot of time, just in terms of making the graphics. The information that's pulled directly from the Alumni Insight tool is amazing because it's so quick and easy, and you really can play with it in terms of, again, here, if you're looking at your educational levels, your programs, your regions, again, your job titles, your occupations, your industries. So it's fun. Now, what I would like to talk a little bit about in the last few minutes, and then we'll leave time for questions, is kind of some new directions that we're looking at going in with this data. So in the last few years, we have been looking at, the huge talk out in the career world around what has been being termed as soft skill development, and really what colleges need to be helping students translate their degrees, their internships, their experiences into not only the hard skill development, which is something that we've been doing forever, but the soft skills, and we're finding that that's so true. And so we've developed a program called the UNM 5, and it's the 5 essential skills that we believe every UNM college student is developing and or developed through their college career. And that means everything from a classroom perspective, so everything they're learning academically in the classroom towards their hard skill degrees. And so that could be assignments, anything. And we've actually matched our essential skills, our UNM 5, with, for example, our core or general ed classes. And so the UNM 5 consists of, for us, our UNM 5 essential skills, is critical thinking, collaboration, communication, research and assessment, and professionalism. And within each of those 5 areas are 5 subcategories that help develop those skills towards that main UNM 5. And so everything that they're learning in the classroom, is relating to a skill building. And so we've been really working on that initiative. And then their co-curricular activities, if they're involved in an organization, a leadership position, if they're involved in student employment, internships, all of that is helping build these skills. And so it's helping relate their college career to real-time skill sets. And then teaching them how that all relates to, as many of you know that are in the career field, then they're helping prepare themselves for their resumes, their cover letters, CVs, applications to grad schools, and their interviews. And being able to actually relate something that they have done directly to the skills that our employers are seeking in them, and having that story and those examples to give and be the most competitive. And our students, I'll be honest with you, are eating this up. So what's cool about this and the new direction that we're going, utilizing Alumni Insight, is that I have been able to run reports on a specific skill or leadership, or qualification. So like I'll use leadership, just a random example. And you can pick hard skills, and this is what I love about this data, is that it actually will distinguish for you a common skill, a hard skill. There's a qualification where they actually have a certification on it. It gets into different areas. And so I'm just going to pick a general one just to show you. And you run that data again, and I used it directly for UNM, and there's 17,357 profiles out there that list leadership. And so it goes through and tells me again, where they're at. The thing that I like about the skills is it actually will tell me the companies that are looking at leadership as being a top, some of the programs, the top occupations, the top job titles. Our students, I really want to, if you kind of excuse the terminology, but I want to prove to them that these skills that they're asking, these behavioral questions from employers, really do matter. And it can make them more competitive, understanding that these are skill sets that our employers need. And it doesn't matter the degree. You'll find an engineer that is listing leadership as one of their top qualifications. You'll find a fine arts major. You will find business. You will find an English degree. And so it really is helping our students understand the association from our skill sets and careers to, and what we're doing in school to their career path. So that's one area that we are developing right now and kind of adding to our UNM 5 initiative. The other area that we're developing right now, utilizing Alumni Insight, this tool, is our connection to alumni relations and actually helping them look at these profiles and realizing the areas that our alumni are in. And what's so great about that and what I've shared with them so far is that especially this area, the Explore Profiles list, where it actually will give direct listings for them. And this helps because they can do some outreach and development around those areas. And so our alumni office has been really excited about that, and hopefully will continue. And this is an area we just started breaching with them, from this tool, from the use of this tool. We work with them hand in hand in many areas, but this tool was exciting to share with them the possibilities that exist with it. And then the other area that's kind of fun is our foundation group. I expressed earlier the use of it at a college level, that each of the colleges within the University of New Mexico can utilize this with their foundation areas, but our general foundation department here at UNM really like this data as well, because they can really look at some of the organizations and the companies that we work with, and they can see how many alumni are working, and some outreach efforts have been made because of this data in order to share and kind of collaborate on where should we focus and some areas that might be a fun area to look at. So we can use this for a lot of different areas. I hope this kind of helped in helping you guys see the different ways you can use this data and really have fun with it. And so I wanted to kind of sum up a little bit about, why I like this data. Again, I've been Director of Career Services here for a long time, since 2006, and have been at UNM for 22 years. And I'm not a data person. I'm actually a counselor by trade. I have my PhD in counseling, but I loved working with this data. I like data to begin with, but I'm not a data person per se. And what I loved about this was that it actually was easy to use and it was fun to use. It was very exciting to see, especially in the position of working in a career office, that this is answering the questions that we most commonly get from parents. Where are students going? To administrators, to chairs and deans of departments, and then to students. So it really is helping address some of those questions and being able to send a student information when they're trying to figure out, or they want to help their mom and dad understand, where are our alumni going, and why is this, a pathway for me as a student, and why does this speak to me? What skills and what areas can I go into with this degree? I think helps really broaden the knowledge and the depth that we provide, the assistance that we provide for our constituents here at UNM. So I've had a lot of fun. Everyone that I've shared this data with has been excited about it. It's one of the first times that I've actually seen people excited about data from our perspective. So I hope this answered some of your questions and got to share a little bit about how nice this data is to use, how easy it is to download into nice Excel spreadsheets where the information is readily available for you. And the visuals. It's nice to see and be able to share with individuals. So I appreciate your time. And I think we're going to open it up for some questions now.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Jenna. First of all, that was really, really informative. I appreciate the overview you gave and then the concrete examples and use cases. Those are really helpful. So thank you for that. And as you said, if anyone has any questions, they can enter those in the questions box right now, and we'll try to get to them. I did also just want to give a heads up that when the webinar ends, there's a brief 4-question feedback survey, and we do read through every single one of those responses. So at the end of the webinar, if you have an extra 45 seconds before the next item on your schedule, please do fill that out, because it helps us improve these webinars and make sure that we're providing useful content for you. And you'll have a chance there as well if you have any questions to enter it in the survey. And Jenna, if you want to go ahead and put up that contact slide as well.
Sorry.
So that people have our email. Jenna has graciously made her email available in case you do want to follow up with her. And then, of course, if you have any specific questions about the product, feel free to reach out to us.
All right. And I see, for some reason, let me see. One of the questions that I just saw was asking regarding program review or improvement. I have yet to honestly see that, although I would tell you that I think that is a very real possibility. I know recently our business school was listening to our employers saying that many of our business degree students were coming out with limited project management experience. And so they actually incorporated now a required class within the curriculum on project management. And so I think that's a great question, and I can see something that this would be a great use with them, especially looking at those skill sets again and digging even deeper into it per major of what the skills are per each of the majors that are really a needed skill set. I think the other thing that that leads to is helping faculty. Faculty are amazing in terms of the knowledge base that they have, but helping them articulate the skills around some of the assignments and some of the things that they're doing. For example, every student moans and groans when someone says, that they are going to do a group project. I'm an adjunct faculty here at UNM, and whenever I say group project, everybody moans because they don't like it. But when I have explained that they're actually learning teaming skills, they're learning that collaboration, the team dynamics, how to get along, how to handle division of a project, and that's related to project management. All of a sudden, it starts making sense to the students why some of these assignments are happening to help them not only learn the topic, and the knowledge base for whatever the class is, but it's also giving them those what's titled as soft skills, or like I like to say, essential skills, that's helping them be more competitive and learn those so that they are definitely more successful in their fields. So yes, I agree with you. I think that I can completely see program review or improvement as a great advantage for using this. The next question someone posed was asking, about how UNM is a large school. We're very large. We have anywhere from 27 to 30,000 students, depending on the year. And how well does this work for a medium-sized community college or a smaller school? How we got access, if you will, to this, we partnered with Emsi on this through the consortium that I'm the president of. So it was the consortium of career educators and employers that we have here in New Mexico. And one of our tech schools, which is New Mexico Tech, has, I'm afraid I'm going to quote, but they're less than 5,000 students. And they are utilizing this pretty much in the same direction that we are. They're really drilling down to utilizing it in terms of major development, for majors, in terms of their college reports. And then they really are pulling as much as they can about their profile, the alumni profile list of the job titles and specific companies. And then they're outreaching to them. So a smaller school, I think, can use it the exact same way that we're using it. And honestly, a smaller school, I know New Mexico Tech, because they're intimate in size and that they know each other very well, the response has been very quick in terms of sharing and being able to disseminate the information to everybody that's a stakeholder for it. So I would imagine, kind of streamlining it to what your needs are would be quite easy. I think it's a great use of a tool and a great use of, where answering that question of where do alumni go, and being able to say that this is directly from alumni's mouths, if you will, on social media and through various alumni connections that Emsi has. I mean, it's great. I mean, you can own it and say that, it is from social media, and I think you have to own data. You always do. And so I think, it's a great tool to use for any size school and drill down as much as you want.
Yeah, I'll jump in here as well. This is Matthew Hyndman, product manager here at Emsi. We do have lots of community colleges who are also using this data, and even though they are often smaller than UNM, we have found that the data that we're able to provide through Alumni Insight is significantly more than the current state of things without that tool. So, but yeah, the use cases, as Jenna mentioned, are the same. The application is the same. And if you're curious about your specific institution, feel free to leave us a note either in the questions box or in the survey, and we can follow up with you and walk through the tool with you and show you how many profiles you have for your institution, that type of thing. Some other questions here. One question on is this feature going to be added to existing accounts? It is currently. This is sold as a separate tool. It actually can function inside of Analyst and live within Analyst, but it will not be automatically added to existing Analyst contracts. So again, that's a separate conversation we'd be happy to chat about the specifics of. There's one question here about the data validation process and in terms of confirming the self-reported information. That is one key point of this data, that it is self-reported. What we're doing is just on the back-end technical side of things, really we take all of the profile information about a person from all these different sites. So you have a professional profile and maybe some different information on social media, and maybe some other information if you have a resume on Career Builder, that type of thing. We compile all of that into a single profile to find the most up-to-date, reliable information possible, and that's how we're getting that information on what they're listing as skills. And in those cases, another addendum to that question was, can you be sure the students are alumni? In those instances on the profiles where they specifically say, I attended this school, that's how we're pulling that information. So it is self-reported, but again, that's sort of the nature of the data, is that it is self-reported in a way that can be great because students are incentivized to keep their profiles up to date for employers who are engaging with them online.
Okay, and I think we are coming up quickly on our hour mark here. It looks like we've addressed most of the questions that have come in right now. So if anyone, again, if you're thinking of something just now, or if the webinar ends and you immediately think, oh, I wish I'd asked such and such, feel free to reach out via email or just leave that in your feedback survey. So Jenna, I just wanted to say thank you again to you so much for putting that presentation together and being so generous to share the work that you've done. And I hope this has been helpful and informative for everybody that spent time with us today. So have a great rest of your afternoon.